Good morning. It's 9:30 on Tuesday, February 28th. So we will call the General Government and Public Safety Committee to meeting to order. We have a one-item agenda. Any changes to that?
I move that we approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Great. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. Just one thing before I turn it over to the chief. So after the last meeting of this committee showed you, Ed, as the chair for our council meeting for the reporting out.
And that
I'm pretty sure that I am the chair.
Right.
You are.
Okay, that's what I thought we had approved.
I'll make sure that's
So if you
corrected.
could get that, because when I saw it on the agenda at that meeting, I'm like, I was ready to give the report and I said, but Ed started, so I said, all right, just go ahead.
That was a clerical error. You are the chair.
That's what I thought we had voted on, so excellent. All right, in that case, I will turn it over to you, Chief.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, all the members of the committee. Today we'll give a brief overview, well, actually a robust discussion of our 2022 crime stats as they currently stand. This will be preliminary numbers only. The actual numbers don't come out till mid-year. So there's some caveats there, but the best I can give you right now based upon the data we have. And I think they are illustrative. So the numbers may change a little bit, but I think the trends will pretty much stay the way they are. See if I can share my screen here. How do I share from there? That's not.
If you want to exit out of that,
Okay.
then go back to Zoom.
I'm gonna check this.
And select share screen, the green box, and select your presentation.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, you able to see that okay?
Yep.
Very good, thank you. All right. I'll try not to kill you with PowerPoint, but I think you do need to see the numbers and the trends. So forward. As I said, this preliminary information, the actual numbers don't come out till mid-year, but this is pretty indicative of the crime trends. Some of the crime types and subtypes are very technical, so they've been grouped by category to provide better information. So we don't get too buried in nuance. Okay, so as you will know, our population has been growing every year. We grew about 6% last year, and that's pretty much been our trend going through the last several years. Our NIBRS is the National Index of Crime Rate as provided by the FBI. This is per capita, so per 1,000 people, what's our crime rate? So obviously those numbers change as population changes. So it is a weighted average. We're at about 59.1. That's a 6% increase from last year. Interesting going back over the years, you got to remember in context. So 2019 was kind of the last quote unquote normal year, if you're going to count normal years. 2020 was lockdown mid-COVID. 2021 was coming out of COVID. A lot of legislative reform between 2020 and 2021. So there's a lot of things that affect crime and how we do business. Going back in time, back to 2021, with those hard numbers that we were able to draw out, a comparison of crime by communities. You'll notice the state average is 62.6 crimes per 1,000 of the population. On average in 2021, we were below that average and in pretty good stead based upon our comparator cities, Olympia, Tumwater, Lakewood, and Wall. So.
Hold on, Chief, hold up if you would. Take a quick snapshot.
I can
We
probably
can forward this to you. That'd be
No,
great.
snapshot. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
So, violent crime as well. The average was 3.8 violent crimes per 1,000 members of the population statewide back in 2021. Again, also in very good stead based upon our comparator cities as well.
Well, Lakewood's,
Lakewood's active.
I didn't realize Lakewood was quite that active.
Yeah, very active.
You haven't been to Lakewood very much then.
Yeah.
I have, but I guess not the parts of Lakewood that I shouldn't be in.
So now we get to our estimations for 2022. You're going to see there's two breakouts of these right? So the first are homicides, sexual assaults, robberies, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, motor vehicle theft, arson, kind of the big ones, right? And the second is simple assault, kidnapping, forgery, counterfeiting, fraud, and drug offenses. So for the first category, the big main category of really serious offenses, generally serious offenses, you're going to see a 14.5% year-over-year increase. Part of that is 20 and 21 were limited growth due to the caveats I explained with COVID and everything else, but also is definitely an increase in the actual number of crimes. So a significant percentage increase, but also a lot of activity, but also growth. If you go back to 2019, 2020, 2018, remember those are also smaller populations. We've had 6% growth year over year throughout those years. So you're gonna have a greater number of raw data as well. So
Quite a jump in
oh yes,
burglary.
we will be talking about
And
some of these
card theft.
categories. And there's interesting information about all those. But yeah, some of our larger increases you'll see for burglary, larcenies, motor vehicle theft is massive. But you'll also need drug offenses have gone down almost nil from where they have been. And there's reasons for that as well. So let's talk about robbery for a moment. So robbery is the taking of properties in force or fear. Can involve a weapon, can be up in hand, can just be a threat. So sometimes the petty theft turns into a robbery once you use force to maintain custody of the property. So for that, 29 of those in 2022 by our best estimation. That's a small increase year over year. Again, it's a relatively small data set, so you get percentage changes are a little not too useful for that. But we use a 5-year trend analysis to really get a better idea versus the year over year. And with that, we're about 26% higher. But again, you had suppressed years year over year going through. Sex offenses, we are way down on forcible sex offenses, which is good news. We are getting a good reporting rate, but it appears to be down year over year. And over the 5-year average, we're seeing a good trend analysis as far as that. Also, in case you've seen the news about untested sex kits, all of ours have been sent out testing. We're starting to get results back. There's a huge backlog at the state crime lab. They've been parceling some of those kits out to private labs. We're starting to get some of that information back. Some of those cases are being cleared through the suspect being passed away or the victim passed away. Those different, they're that far backlogged, unfortunately, on some of these. But we are resolving those cases as the information comes in. Aggravated assault, that's a pretty significant increase. I think there's some reasons behind that we can talk about. Simple assaults are maintaining at a pretty good height year over year, and also through our 5-year average. Aggravated assaults, which is the more serious assault, it's more than just a punch, it's going on and on, causing serious injury. That's significant. That's partly due to a larger population, but also I think due to some of the things we'll talk about in a little bit.
Simple assault would be
Push, a punch, a minor touching, that type of thing. Generally not causing a lot of injury. Arsons are very episodic. They'll come in waves. So we had a few more last year or this year than last year. But again, it ebbs and flows. It's also a very small data set. But again, 10 for a population of 60,000 over the course of a year is not incredibly large. Weapon law violations, again, relatively high over the 5-year average, maintaining in the mid-20 range. That's pretty much normal with what we've been seeing.
Is that just having a weapon that isn't, I mean, what, that's all that is?
That means you haven't used it yet.
Having a weapon that's not legal? I mean,
Exactly.
you know,
Illegal possession of a weapon you're not allowed to have, or in a place you're not allowed to have it.
okay.
Narcotics offenses, 13. I'm surprised we have 13, to tell you the truth.
That's because of the.
The Blake decision and we had a huge impact, clarity, Constitution invalid. They restructured it, reduced it from a felony to a simple misdemeanor, whereby the first 2 contacts with an individual in possession of narcotics or believed to be in narcotics are automatic referrals. Can't even take their information, identifying information. You just give them a card and take whatever name they give you. There's no centralized database among all of law enforcement, so that's just for our agency. So we don't know how many times they've been contacted by other folks to have that first 2 referrals.
Hold up a sec. If you can't take any information, how do you know when there've been, when you've hit that?
It's whatever name they tell you. You're not allowed
So
to.
if they tell one officer, my name is John Smith, and they tell the next guy it's something else,
Correct, and there's no way.
that doesn't count as the two.
It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't count the two, or you can tell me your real name, and then tell Olympia your real name, and tell Tumwater your real name, and then tell Lakewood your real name. It'll still only count as one because you don't have a centralized database, how many times they've been contacted. And when
This is working well.
And when you get to court, they can say, well, prove it was me the first 2 times. I can't, unless we went to high school together and, somehow I know you have prior contacts, right? So something along those lines.
Okay.
So also prosecutors are encouraged to defer as well for the first 2 times, because you have to 4 times before a 5th time where you could actually be tried in court, but only for a simple misdemeanor.
Even on the 5th time, it's still a simple misdemeanor.
Always a simple misdemeanor. And there's no requirement to go to rehabilitation at that point either. It's still voluntary, which I think is really indicative of all the crime stats you're starting to see. And I'll talk about that a little more at the end, but very, very, very limited narcotics cases moving forward. And there's no incentive to go to rehab. Why would you? Because right before all the people that go into rehab was because of a court condition.
Beyond self-reflection.
Correct. We do have a lot of littering from the cards we hand out to people. They immediately throw it on the ground. We don't cite them for it, but yeah, there's a lot of that, I got to tell you. So again, 88% decrease over the 5-year trend. Pretty telling. And I can tell you the solutions being proposed to this law, because it sunsets July of this year. It's only a 2-year law. It sunsets this year. They're trying to make a fix to it. And part of that fix, I think, is good because it would be a gross misdemeanor right now is the main fix we're looking at. If you go to rehab, it comes off your record, which I think is a great way to work with it. So you don't have a criminal record. If you go complete rehab, it's expunged from your record. So I think that's a pretty good.
So there's still no forced into rehab, but if you do go, at least there's an upside to going.
That's the upside.
Okay,
And that would encourage more folks to go
sure.
that route versus the criminal route of custody and doing time. Auto thefts. This is a direct result of the no pursuit policy. Hands down, no ups, no downs, no extras. And I've heard a lot of different arguments, but it is clearly due to, hey, if I'm in a car, they can't touch me. That is the belief. We've had incidents throughout the county, throughout the state, where people actually being chased for various reasons, thinking that you can only chase if you believe reasonable suspicion they're DUI or probable cause they believe they've committed one of a few serious crimes. Probable cause that the driver of the vehicle is the person who did it. And probable cause is a massive standard. It means you can actually arrest them for the crime, not just investigate them for the crime. It is the highest standard in the nation, and it's nearly impossible. And the way they operationalize it, it's almost impossible to actually do in practice because you have to have prior permission from a supervisor to conduct the pursuit. And by the time you get that, the guy's out of sight.
And probable cause is usually you don't come to probable cause until you've done the investigation, right? I mean, that's why you have detectives
Correct.
to do all that to get to the probable cause.
And I can tell you a bunch of our cases where if that had been the standard, we wouldn't have caught the person in prior years. We had a murder where the person was seen fleeing the scene, suspicious vehicle fleeing the scene of a reported burglary / assault, vehicle fleeing the area. They chase the vehicle, stop the driver based upon reasonable suspicion that they were involved in that act. They go in, it turns out to be a murder. That guy would have gotten away because we had no problem. We didn't even know what the crime was first. So if you have no probable cause, you know the crime has occurred. We have suspicion because it's reported, but until we actually investigate it and get the elements of the crime, we don't have it yet. So that's a huge concern with the way the law is currently written. There are steps to correct that, but they are timid and very tepid to really reform it the way it needs to be reformed. So auto thefts have gone up massively. And that's just, we're finding stolen cars here. We're picking up stolen cars here. We're finding people in stolen cars here. Cars are being stolen from here, taken to other places. Some are just for transportation. Some are to take the parts, to commit other crimes. Literally it is. And it's split into other areas as well as people doing petty thefts, shoplifting, things like that. Once they get into a car, they know, and they're driving that much more recklessly to get away because they know we can't stop them. I had an incident with one of my officers this week. They're checking a local motel. They find a car, run the plate, comes back stolen, guy's in it. They go to contact, the guy backs up, starts to drive towards one of my officers. And we had to put out stop sticks, which are the tire deflation devices. The officer just got out of the way in time and didn't get hit. That's the kind of stuff we're seeing on a routine basis. And you've seen the videos where they're rocking, socking, smashing cars, trying to get away. Because they know you can't stop me. You can't chase me. Once I get away, I'm away. So
I mean, 98% increase, that's ridiculous.
that's pretty ridiculous. Burglaries, as you mentioned, are up as well. These are mostly commercial. Again, it's this lawless kind of sense. There's no accountability. You can't hold me. You can't follow up on me. Once I'm in a car, you can't catch me. It's a problem. Drug use is going up. We have information from some of the local encampments that are on our periphery, that the only way you're allowed to be in the camp is if you use hard drugs. That way we know you're not a cop or an informant. And people that use drugs tend not to have a lot of inhibitions. So you're seeing more assaults, you're seeing more thefts, more brazen activity. That's our problem, right? We need to get a handle on this as a state. Okay, here we go. So here are some of the things driving where we're at, how we've gotten to here. We had residual impacts of COVID pandemic on the criminal justice system. So we had limited booking at the county jail for a couple of years due to COVID, and through, I think, very well-meaning, and you just had to do it, right? You had to reduce the number of people in population down to about 1/3 of the capacity, just to limit the spread of COVID in congregate care, which is what a jail is. At the time, they weren't allowing bookings for car theft. If you did catch for car theft, you got out right away. Commercial burglary, that's with the rise of burglaries, residential burglary. Unless it was a violent offense, we couldn't book you into the county jail, or a DUI, or domestic violence.
Now, are they now, can you now?
They have started to loosen up a little bit. It's not everything. We have another issue, which we need to discuss, I think, at a regional level about the confirming of warrants.
Say it again.
Confirming of warrants. So as jurisdictions do a case do a prosecution on individual, and the individual's not in custody, they file a warrant for that person's arrest. Well, there's certain jurisdictions around us that don't confirm the warrants, because you stop the individual, you run them, they have a warrant in the system for burglary, theft, what have you. Certain jurisdictions are not confirming their warrants, so you can't arrest them on that warrant.
So what do you mean? Like, so when you see the warrant shows up, you call the officer is calling to confirm that warrant with that other
Correct.
jurisdiction?
Correct.
And they don't, what do you mean they don't confirm? They just
They
don't
haven't
answer? They
confirmed
don't say yes?
They
for
don't
the
say,
warrant?
we're not going to accept that warrant.
Why? What's the reason?
There's a number of excuses for it, frankly. One is jail capacity. That was one excuse for a while. But generally, they're just not confirming certain warrants. They're not really giving reasons why. But it's concern. It's something we'll be talking about at the chief level and hopefully at the city manager level as well, because I think it is a huge issue. Now that jail,
Who's not confirming warrants?
it's a number of jurisdictions. I don't want to single one out. There's a number of jurisdictions that do that.
Do we confirm warrants when
Yes.
it's others calling us?
Yes. Because we contract with Squally Jail for our warrants, so we take people there, right? And that's really one of the big things that we do, is that we have that capacity to the graces of the council, that we have that ability to take people into custody. So,
Kind of an important thing for the police to be able to do, I would.
well,
say, to
yes,
do their
yeah,
job.
we're very pro that, frankly. So,
Is it a neighboring city that we know of that's not?
I don't think it's fair to single them out, because it's not just them, right?
Okay.
So, I mean,
So they are part of it though.
well, there's lots of people doing it. I think that's fair.
Okay.
There's like Chief said, there's a combination of issues that,
Yeah.
jail capacity, how they hold them, all those different pieces systematically, it's been some challenges.
Some folks say it's court capacity, but we're gonna figure that out. I mean, we need increased capacity then, right? I mean, you
Right.
can't just have warrants not being confirmed, people just, because again, that feeds the lawlessness of it, right? Well, if I'm not gonna be able to count, I'll just do what I'm doing.
Yeah, there's no.
I literally had,
accountability.
so at the height of COVID, when we couldn't book people for stealing cars, we catch them again and again and again and again. We just have to keep let them loose. It was insane. We started reducing charges of misdemeanors so that we could book them in a Squally jail. We forget the more serious offenses, only so we could keep them in custody at the Squally jail. So I mean, that's kind of what we're facing. Again, criminal courts have limited capacity during COVID. They're starting to get better now. At one point, at the height, there were 1,500 criminal cases pending for review at the prosecutor's office. And John Thunheim, the county prosecutor, has been working on getting that number reviewed and reduced. But again, it's a capacity issue, right? If you don't do cases for a couple of years or a year and a half, it takes a while to catch back up, especially when you're still doing more cases.
Are they making progress on getting that caught up? Do you know?
We check in once a month and they are making some progress. Frankly, some cases are just timing out. They've run the statute, so they disappear. But hopefully we're looking at most of them. Again, prosecutor's office has a staffing issue. They're down prosecutors. We took one of them, frankly, as our criminal prosecutor. He's doing Chad. He's doing a great job. But again, there's just that constant trying to get staffing. I know it was discussion at the finance meeting earlier today about staffing issues and getting people. It's tough. Again, it's all about holding folks accountable for what they do. If you don't do that, they get empowered and emboldened and continue to commit crimes. It's clearly what's happening. It's very unfortunate. Again, talking about how there's pursuit laws, we can only pursue it under extremely limited circumstances, and just to operationalize it, it's almost impossible to actually do it correctly. If you don't do it correctly, the risk is the officer gets decertified. That's a problem. The officer gets decertified, they can't be a police officer, that reduces our staffing, and a huge investment we just put in that employee is now gone to waste.
Yeah, plus their own risk. They're not going to pursue unless they have it all in mind.
Has any police officers in Washington State been decertified through this new process?
Not yet, but frankly, the process takes a while. I can foresee this becoming an issue, frankly, it's a concern. But again, this resulted in criminal vehicles fleeing, knowing they can't be chased, increased vehicle theft, additional crimes, and also being more aggressive, and just lawlessness beats more lawlessness. And that's the problem. And this is all, it has had a compounding effect based upon all the different things that have happened. And it's interesting when we have conversations with legislators about this. And I said, what are we doing wrong in the city of Lacey that you're like, oh no, you guys are doing it right. Okay, then why not just follow our policies, how we do things here and make that statewide? Well, I get a lot of hemming and hawing. Again, we're an accredited agency. We're the only accredited agency in Thurston County. Everything we do, any policy we put out, we have legal review on it as well, best practice. We really try to be progressive in what we do. We find alternatives for people who don't need to be introduced in the criminal justice system. Truly, these are the people that I'm talking about need to be introduced into the criminal justice system. These are not folks that should be given social services. We've already done that through our mobile outreach team and our community resource unit. We're doing that part of it. So that's definitely what the legislature wants. They wanted a civilian, non-police response to folks who need social services. That is being done. The folks we're talking about today are the folks who need incarceration. They need to be in the criminal justice system. They need intervention and to stop what they're doing, to stop victimizing our community. Right. So that's what we're working towards right now. And it's frankly a difficult conversation to have at times. I was at Legislative Law Day a couple of weeks back, and it was very interesting hearing the perspective of certain legislators. Just very interesting. There's some that totally get it, and there's some that just aren't interested in having the conversation.
Really, not even interested in that.
Nope.
So these numbers, and I'm assuming, I don't know this, but these numbers are probably similar in jurisdictions all over the state. I'm getting the increases.
The increases, yes. So we're fortunate. We don't have the rise in violence, such as violent robberies, homicides, shootings. We don't have near the volume some of the other jurisdictions in the more metropolitan areas are having. Sure, it's going to come because that's what usually happens. Is the trend. It starts up north and heads on south. So that's my concern. If we don't get a handle on this, it's going to get more violent. So with prosecutions increasing, I think we'll see more progress as far as some of the property crimes and things like that. I think we'll be fine there. It's the violence that really concerns me, frankly. And I think our strategies are working. Our staffing is getting where it needs to be. We have some definite strategies and things in progress on that. So that's good. But again, the laws have to be there that allow us to do this type of enforcement. To catch people need to get caught. There are some bills, frankly, that we need to get ahead of right now. The no stopping for non-moving violations is a huge concern. Really?
That one passed out of committee too, I saw.
It's going to the floor. That's a concern. A pursuit bill, that's a concern. The narcotics possession bill. All those are some really key pieces of legislation that need to be worked on. And they need to fix them. But you can't tie the hands of law enforcement and not expect crime to go up. It's gonna happen, unfortunately. I can't tell you how proud I am of our folks. Our officers are out there every single day, doing the job right, treating people well with respect, and doing everything they can lawfully to intercede crime. So
Is there anything you need from the council? Is there anything we can do to help?
I can tell you that they're paying attention when they get calls from city managers, when they call from politicians, mayors, council people about the impacts they're having on the community. They're kind of tired of hearing from cops because they think that we're they think as a, well, I won't say all of them, that's not fair. Some think that we're just being passive aggressive, that we're pouting this and that. And it's like, no, I just need tools so I can do my job effectively to protect the people that expect me to protect them. Because folks don't understand this at all. What do you mean you can't chase them? Yeah, I can't chase them. Just because they stole something from your house doesn't mean I can chase them. So that's a concern.
So calls to our legislators, that kind of thing. is
That
what
would
you're
be very
talking
helpful.
And it's also part of the legislative priority for the state. And the
Sure.
work that, Shannon's been doing with our lobbyist Brian Enslow and keeping that conversation moving forward.
So Pat, are there any questions I can answer?
It's just shameful that, straight from the source, this is the problem. That's your business to help illustrate what the issues are, and they don't want to listen. They don't want to listen. I just,
It's infuriating.
that's mind boggling.
And this, when you talk about legislation from around the state to the various
Oh, yeah.
perspectives. So I want
Yeah, of
to also,
course.
yeah, so.
Oh, yeah, no, it's not just our delegation,
Yeah.
obviously.
Oh,
It's
no.
just the state. It's the state.
And I will say our delegation has been willing to listen. I won't
Yep.
say that they're not willing to have the conversation. There's other folks up north along the 5 corridor.
Yeah.
That have a different perspective.
Yep.
Not the nicest way.
Thank you for that clarity.
Mayor, anything?
Nope, I mean, we know obviously the impacts it's been having, and I know the Association of Washington Cities is very supportive of the changes that need to happen, and all we can do is continue to reach out to our the state and try to explain it, and also listen to them and try to hear why their thought processes on why they think it needs to be changed or stay the same as well, and then try to come to some sort of compromise that makes our communities safer. That's what we all want, is safe communities. So
If I could just reinforce something that Chief mentioned too, and this is from my experience of interacting with our officers, going out with them in the community, going with the CRU team out and working with encampments and how is that the work that they do is very challenging, as we all know, and they're mostly in interacting with people on their worst days, but the professionalism and their people-oriented relationship, how they interact with people is very positive, and it's very it's just nice to see that community-based policing model where you're developing those relationships and working with people and enforcing those laws when they need to enforce them as well. So I just want to reinforce what Chief says. They have a very difficult job, but they do it very well, and they do it in a very professional manner as well. So.
Yeah, I would just add, we don't hear from the public on this topic a lot. We hear a lot about the crime issues that are going on, but we're not about individual situations. But I will say that every time I hear from a resident in Lacey and who's had some direct involvement with police in whatever situation, I've never heard anything but positive.
Yep.
I mean, they always talk about the professionalism. They always talk about them trying to help, not, basically being there to try to help and not trying to be a bigger problem. So I mean, your staff does a great job. Your officers do a phenomenal job. But obviously, some of these state laws are just handcuffing them to not have the ability to do their job. And, you know, we all need to reach out to our legislators and try to help there. Anything else?
Nope.
I'd like to get a copy of that, please. So,
Likewise.
and on that note, since that is the end of our agenda, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
So we'll
Thanks,
send presentation out to the council.
So council members, all of the presentations are on the website. I know Chief said he's got a few updates.
No,
I'll
it's-
send you the same one. Okay. So if you go into